Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing the Indianapolis Colts 7-round mock draft. We did a full 7-round mock draft, all 256 picks, and today we're breaking down all of the Indianapolis selections. Before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, and also ring the bell to get notified whenever new Colts mock drafts come out. We have done a 3-round mock draft already for the Indianapolis Colts. We also have other 3-round and 7-round mock drafts planned leading up all the way to the 2024 NFL Draft, which is just over 2 months away now. So be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Ryan, pull up the screen here just to orient you a little bit. Obviously, at the top, you're going to see kind of what round that we are in. And then obviously the name in bold is going to be the player that we selected. We're going to get to that here in a second. But we wanted to include just some context on what players were taken before and then also who were still available on the board as some other potential interests as well. And where those players were selected that they were not on the screen here. So we ended up going with Nate Wiggins here at 15 for Indianapolis. And I feel like the way the board's shaping up and I look at the Indianapolis Colts team needs, I think that they are going to get one of the top secondaries in the class. It's just going to be whichever one that they like the most. We ended up going with Nate Wiggins here. We've had Cooper DeJean go to them. I've seen Quinyon Mitchell go to them. Actually, I think you just did Quinyon Mitchell in your Monday mock draft. Go check that out if you haven't already. Maybe Terran Arnold rises. I think that just the way that this board is shaping up, and I'm looking at some of the team needs, maybe a couple of teams ahead of them could maybe take that early, but there's so many good players in this class and other positions as well, where I could see an argument where corners fall a little bit here to 15. I could also see an argument as well where maybe the Colts, they want to go receiver, or maybe they want to go with Laiatu Latu as well, or if Jersey Newton falls and they want to plug up that middle, help out with the run defense. So many different ways I think that they could end up going here with this 15th pick. And there's not too many selections that I dislike for them, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I will say, looking at what the Colts were able to do with Gardner Minshew, I think that really showed their well-roundedness in this roster. And they had some weak points, but still nothing that was like egregiously bad. Like I point to the Tennessee Titans in this division, and I look at that secondary and offensive line, and I'm like, those are two like points that really need to be addressed in this offseason. And so like going with the Colts, it was kind of a best player available need. And I will say the secondary is like they have needs, but secondary is probably the most pressing. But they did invest in Darius Rush and Juju Brents, Juju Brents had a good rookie season. Darius Rush played kind of in a limited role when he was on the field. So getting a guy in Nate Wiggins, to me, there's 5 corners at the top of this draft that are really solid NFL prospects, and Nate Wiggins is the most athletic of them all, best natural athlete. I don't know if he's ready to play right away, but I think with a little bit of refinement, a little bit of coaching up, and he could be the best corner in this class for sure.
Yeah.
Just because of his physical attributes. And I think you look at DeAndre Hopkins, you have Nico Collins, Tank Dell, you have Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. Like this division, they need solid corners. And I think Nate Wiggins is just that. He's going to be a really solid corner. And I think with the right coaching, he could be a Pro Bowl, perennial Pro Bowl, or potentially even an All-Pro at some point in his career. So
you can make an argument he would be the best corner already on that Colts team. So
yeah.
So let's move on now to the second round pick. And so one of the needs I mentioned was helping out on the run stuffing side as well, getting a big defensive tackle. And they get that here with Devondre Sweat. So he can absolutely help out in the run game, but also too, he actually has some pretty decent pass moves as well, especially for a guy of his size of he's what 6'2", 360 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 6'3".
360. It's more than 360. It's more than 360 that the number that it's like. Yeah.
And honestly, somebody at 6'3", he's going to play with good leverage because those centers are like he's going to be a hard guy to move off the ball. He's not a 6'9" guy where you can really get under his pads. So
yeah. So and he's had some good explosive movement. I'm curious to kind of see how he does in the combine. I thought he did pretty well in the Senior Bowl, and so I think Byron Murphy maybe is going to go ahead of him just because he's a little bit more of an every down type defensive tackle. Yeah. While Devondre Sweat, I think he can work into that, but his size is going to be his pros, but it's also going to be his cons as well. And so it's just, I don't think you have him in on like a full 15 play type series where he's the every down kind of guy. So, but that being said though, too, a team with Indianapolis who Really struggled with just they had a quick defensive line. They had a lot of sacks, but they struggled to sometimes stop the run. I think you go get a big guy right here. I think it's going to help kind of round out that defense a little bit more, especially then too when you pair him up with Nate Wiggins to help out with that secondary.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you get a guy like this next to DeForest Buckner. He's kind of a if you're double teaming me kind of guy, which he can definitely stand up to double teams at the next level. He has the play strength for that. If you're double teaming him, you're not double teaming DeForest Buckner also. And so I think that's what is really enticing about a guy like this is you get that run stuffing ability, but then I think you also free up DeForest Buckner and that rotation of edge rushers that they already have in Indianapolis. So I think this is a really good pick. You touched on it already, but my favorite part about him is just his athleticism at that size. Reminds me a little bit of, I think it was Travis Jones out of UConn from 2 years ago. Just a really athletic guy. He went at the top of the third round. And I think a lot of that was just because he played at UConn and not the highest level of competition. So I really like this pick. I think he would be a nice fit there in Indianapolis and really help out that run defense, which they definitely need. So let's go ahead and get into the third pick. This is where we address the offensive side of the ball in that wide receiver room. This is the third wide receiver from that elite Washington offense. Jaylen McMillan, just a really solid all-around guy. All three of those wide receivers from Washington are going to end up being top 100 picks. And frankly, if this was not a just absolutely loaded wide receiver class, these guys would easily all be top 50 picks. And the fact that you're going to get a day one starter or day one contributor, if not a starter, in the third round at the wide receiver position is awesome. And Jaylen McMillan, he is going to be a little bit more of your field stretcher, but he's going to open things up for Michael Pittman. The Alec Pierce pick hasn't quite, I think, worked out as well as the Colts had thought. And so I could see those guys potentially competing for playing time there. And I will say, even as good as Alec Pierce was as a prospect, I do kind of like Jaylen McMillan maybe a little bit more, just because I think everybody focuses on Rome Odunze in that offense. And these guys, Jalen Polk and Jaylen McMillan, are kind of the unsung heroes because they're the ones. Rome Odunze is making the highlight plays, but they're the ones getting the third downs. They're the ones making the big plays, as well. They're doing a lot more of the dirty work in this wide receiver room, and they do a really good job of it.
Well, it's very easy to then to like if the star player is getting double covered every time, to have those opportunities, but then capitalizing on those opportunities, and they consistently kept doing that over and over again. And so I think too, adding him adds a little bit more depth and variety if they want to move on from Alec Pierce. But I also think too, just getting into this another elite weapon for Anthony Richardson in this offense as well. Also, too, technically, I know they like to have a tight end set, and we're going to talk about the tight end position here in a second. But in theory, though, if they didn't want to, their tight ends aren't amazing. So if they wanted to have something where it's Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and then Michael Pittman in the slot, then Jaylen McMillan outside, and do a 4 receiver set, I could also see them doing that as well. I could see that whole formation doing that. And really, if you're those defenses, I think there's a lot of different varieties. I think that Shane Steichen could come up with. So really like Jaylen McMillan here. It's crazy too, to your point. Like I'm looking at it. I think there was 11 receivers taken in our mock draft within the first 45 picks.
Yeah,
and it sounds like a lot, but it's like, man, all those picks, I
could honestly see
I can justify all of those.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Jalen Polk was one of them, but maybe if Jalen McMillan works his way up as well. I think then there were a couple other receivers that dropped outside. Xavier Worthy dropped outside to 56. And then there was a Jermaine Burton drop to the Falcons. So maybe those guys could work their way up. Maybe a couple guys drop down. But so there's just so many great receivers here. And maybe Jalen McMillan goes ahead of Xavier Worthy. Maybe he goes ahead of Jalen Polk. It's just going to be on who on which team values certain receivers more. And so that's going to be the fascinating thing to see. So let's move on, though, to the day 3 picks. Only 4 day 3 picks for the Colts as of right now, starting off with Austin Booker, edge from Kansas, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And so we addressed the cornerback, we addressed the defense tackle, then we got the receiver. So we thought that we addressed the edge rusher position. I will say there's this edge rushing class is very top heavy. So I think finding edge rusher, especially here day 3, a guy like Austin Booker, I think is good value because there's not going to be too many of them overall. And then if we want to move on then to the 5th pick, Siona Vaki.
Yeah. Safety from
close
Utah.
enough. Okay, sorry. I apologize if I mispronounced her name.
Yeah.
So, but just cornerback, and then also it's similar, I think, reasons for the Nate Wiggins pick. Again, a good player, good value overall. Dress that young secondary. Just try and find some good talent and some good diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, and then the last 2 picks, Eric All tapping into that Iowa tight end magic there. To me, he's a height, weight, speed candidate, right? And at this point in the draft, you're really looking for physical traits, but he's the 6'5", 250, decent mover for his size and has good hands. So it could just be a reliable tight end there. And then Ethan Driscoll, I believe the offensive tackle out of Marshall. But yeah, just to me, a good developmental prospect. Also, just has the size and the length I think you want at the tackle position in the NFL. So I really like that there. And then also, I will say the tackle position, I would rather load up on tackles and then if they don't work out, potentially try to kick them into guard rather than just draft a bunch of guards, because I think that's like if they don't work out at guard, then they don't work out. So at least here for a 7th round pick, I think there's more ways for a guy like that to get on the field. So I like that pick there. All in all, just to kind of wrap things up, I think for the Indianapolis Colts, starting out with Nate Wiggins, I really just like that pick. And then going on even to like Jaylen McMillan, Eric All, I think like those guys are going to be potential like roster bowl contributors, I think, from day one. And this is a really talented draft class. And I think the Colts are primed to take advantage of it. Anthony Richardson is coming back. They're going to get him a weapon, some protection, and hopefully a better, even better defense. Because I think this Colts defense, while not elite, was better. I think at times this offense stalled out and put them in some bad positions throughout the year. So I definitely think like the Colts have potential. They almost won the division this year. I think they're definitely going to be in contention next year. And I like what they have going for them.
Yep, same here. It's going to be good. Randomly, the AFC South became very competitive. So.
I know we were at this point last year talking about, well, the Colts don't have a quarterback. The Texans,
Jags are going to run away with it.
Yeah, Jags are going to run away with it. The Titans are going to rebuild, and like all of a sudden they have 3 second-year quarterbacks that all showed promise. Some more than others. I'm not trying to compare C.J. Stroud to Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, but like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson both showed promise in their starts. Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence, right? And I think that Jags team is going to get back on track. So it's going to be really interesting watching this division and seeing how it plays out. But let's go ahead and wrap up the Colts 7-round mock draft here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this 7-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? Other than that, we will see you guys next time.